Respected brothers and sisters, the question often arises, did Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him, force Queen Bilqees, the Queen of Sheba, to accept Islam? And how do we understand this in the light of the Qur'anic verse? When we study the Quran, we find that Sulaiman, peace be upon him, was not only a king, but also a prophet of Allah. His mission, like all other prophets, was to call people towards the worship of the one true God without compulsion, but with wisdom and evidence. The Quran itself makes it clear in Surah Al-Baqarah, there is no compulsion in religion. This fundamental principle applies to all prophets and all messengers of Allah. When Bilqees received the letter from Sulaiman inviting her to submit to Allah, she did not blindly accept. Rather, she consulted her advisors, she reflected, and she even tested the truth of Sulaiman's prophethood. Later, when she came into the presence of Sulaiman and saw with her own eyes the signs of Allah's power, her throne transported in an instant, the palace with its crystal floor that appeared like water, she realized the greatness of the message. Finally, she declared openly, "My Lord, I have wronged myself, and I submit with Sulaiman to Allah, the Lord of the worlds." Notice her words. She was not forced. She said clearly, "I submit with Sulaiman." Not I was forced by Sulaiman. Her acceptance was the result of conviction, not compulsion. If Sulaiman had used force, the Quran would have mentioned it. Instead, the Quran emphasizes that she recognized her own error, admitted her own mistakes, and chose Islam willingly. This is consistent with the Quranic principle that guidance comes from Allah, and the role of the messenger is to convey the truth with clarity. Therefore, the light of the verse shows us that Bilqees embraced Islam out of realization, not under duress. Sulaiman, peace be upon him, fulfilled his prophetic duty by presenting the truth, while her heart, through reflection and observation, accepted it freely. This teaches us an important lesson. Islam spread through reason, wisdom, and evidence, not by force. And those who enter Islam sincerely, like Bilqees, do so because of conviction in the truth of the message of Allah. Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him, was blessed by Allah with immense wisdom, power, and knowledge, but above all, he was a prophet whose responsibility was to convey the message of Tawheed, worship of the one true God. His mission, like that of all prophets, was never to force people into Islam, but to present the truth clearly so that people could recognize it and accept it out of their own free will. When we examine the story of Sulaiman and Bilqees in the Quran, we see that the invitation was extended with dignity, wisdom, and authority, but not compulsion. Sulaiman wrote a letter to Bilqees, beginning with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. In that letter, he called her and her people to submit to Allah alone and not to be arrogant against the truth. The very style of the letter shows the prophetic method of dawah, starting with the remembrance of Allah and presenting the message with clarity and respect. He did not threaten her with force, nor did he demand blind obedience. Rather, he called her to reflect and respond to the truth. Bilqees, upon receiving this letter, did not immediately accept Islam. She discussed it with her advisors, showing that she was free to consider and deliberate on the invitation. This alone proves that she was not under any compulsion, because if force had been used, there would be no room for consultation or personal decision-making. Instead, she weighed the matter carefully, trying to understand whether this was a political challenge or a genuine divine message. Later, when she sent gifts to test Sulaiman, he rejected them, making it clear that his mission was not for worldly gain but purely for the worship of Allah. This further showed that the prophet was not interested in material benefit or coercion, but only in delivering the truth. When Bilqees finally visited the kingdom of Sulaiman, she witnessed many miraculous signs. She saw her throne transported before her in the blink of an eye, a miracle that no ordinary king could achieve. She also saw the magnificent palace with crystal floors that looked like water. These experiences opened her eyes to the power and truth of Allah's message. Yet, even at that moment, Suleiman did not force her to accept Islam. He simply presented the evidence, allowing her to come to her own conclusion. Her final words in the Quran, where she admits that she had wronged herself and declares her submission to Allah with Suleiman, demonstrate that her acceptance was sincere and voluntary. This entire episode highlights that Suleiman's invitation to Bilqees was based on wisdom, evidence, and the clear signs of Allah, not on compulsion or force. It shows that the role of a prophet is to deliver the message and let guidance come from Allah, while human beings are given the freedom to accept or reject after the truth is made clear. Bilqees, the Queen of Sheba, was a wise and intelligent ruler who did not take decisions impulsively. When she was introduced to the message of Islam through Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him, she was given the chance to observe, reflect, and test the truth before making her choice. Her eventual acceptance of Islam was not an act of surrender to power, nor was it the result of being compelled by force, but rather a conscious and willing decision made after realizing the truth of the message and recognizing the signs of Allah. The Quran makes it clear that she herself declared her previous mistakes, admitting openly that she had been worshipping the sun and other false gods, and then announced her submission to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. This process of personal reflection and eventual acceptance demonstrates that guidance works through conviction, not coercion. When Bilqees received the letter from Suleiman, she did not immediately accept his call. She consulted her nobles and ministers, seeking their advice. This shows that her decision was not one of fear or pressure, but of deliberate thought and evaluation. Her advisors suggested the possibility of using force, but she recognized that military confrontation with a prophet of Allah would not bring about success. Instead, she chose diplomacy and observation. Later, when she visited the palace of Suleiman, she was confronted with clear and undeniable evidence that could only be from Allah. Her throne being brought before her in an instant was not just a display of power, but a sign that Suleiman's message was divinely supported. Still, Suleiman did not utter words of compulsion. He allowed her to process what she had seen and come to a decision of her own. When she mistook the crystal floor for water and lifted her garment, she realized the greatness of Allah's creation and the wisdom of his prophet. This experience humbled her heart, and at that moment she recognized the reality that she had been misguided. Her words, recorded in the Quran, are full of sincerity. She admitted, "I have wronged myself," and then declared her submission with Suleiman to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Her use of the words "with Suleiman" indicates that she stood as an equal believer alongside him, not as a subject forced into obedience. She chose to align herself with the truth she had come to witness. The entire story reflects that the journey of Bilqees was one of understanding and realization. She was not overpowered by political strength or compelled by military might. Rather, she was moved by the undeniable signs of Allah and the clarity of the prophetic message. Her acceptance of Islam was voluntary, the result of deep reflection, wisdom, and conviction in the truth she had seen and experienced. The Quran itself lays down a universal principle in Surah Al-Baqarah that there is no compulsion in religion, and this principle applies across all prophetic missions, including that of Suleiman. Peace be upon him, religion is a matter of the heart and conviction, and true faith cannot be forced because forced belief is not real belief. When the Quran describes the acceptance of Islam by Bilqees, it shows that her journey was one of realization and conviction, not pressure. She observed, she reflected, and she came to the conclusion herself. The verse that says there is no compulsion in religion means that people are to be invited to the truth with wisdom, clear reasoning, and signs from Allah, but they are never to be forced because faith is only valid when it comes from the heart. A person may be outwardly compelled to act a certain way, but inward faith cannot be imposed. This is why all the prophets, including Sulaiman, relied on presenting evidence and signs of Allah's greatness rather than using force to compel people to submit. In the case of Bilqees, her decision to accept Islam was directly in line with this Qur'anic principle. Sulaiman did not drag her into submission through power or threat. Instead, he delivered the message of Tawheed clearly and allowed her to witness the miracles that confirmed his prophethood. She was given the freedom to think, to question, and to choose. Only after realizing the truth herself did she declare her submission. The Quran records her own words, "I submit with Sulaiman to Allah, the Lord of the worlds." And this statement clearly indicates that she entered Islam willingly alongside Sulaiman, not under his compulsion. The very language of the verse proves that she recognized her own mistakes and made her decision consciously. This reflects the essence of the Quranic teaching that compulsion has no place in religion, because true guidance is from Allah and the role of the Prophet is to convey, not to enforce. This principle is important because it emphasizes that Islam values free will and understanding. Faith must be based on knowledge and conviction, not on fear of worldly authority. Bilqees had power, wealth, and influence, yet she humbled herself before Allah because of conviction, not because of pressure. This distinction is critical in understanding the Quranic narrative. If she had been forced, her faith would have had no value, but the Quran presents her as a figure who recognized her errors, admitted them, and chose to embrace the truth sincerely. The story, therefore, illustrates the Quranic declaration that there is no compulsion in religion, and it serves as a timeless lesson that Islam spreads through clarity, wisdom, and conviction, rather than through coercion.